A very good morning to everybody. Today is the first day of our third season of presentations for semester 3 students. And today we will have uh, presentations on Indian English literature. Uh, the literature which was published during the time of pre-independence. Let us see the list of the participants who are going to make their presentations today. In this session, let me share a screen and the list of the presenters. And let us have a look at their topics also. So first we will have today Aarti Sarvaiya making presentation on Karna, the voice of subaltern from T.P. Kailasam's play. Anjali will read presentation on symbolism of light and darkness in R.K. Narayan's An Astrologer's Day, followed by Avani's presentation on Sita as the women. Bhavyata will read on decoding manipulation, analyzing the astrologer's tricks in An Astrologer's Day by R.K. Narayan. Drashti's presentation on characterizing beliefs with reference to Gandhi and Tagore's Dichotomy. Gayatri's presentation on nationalism in the home and the world, Tagore's novel. Ghanshyam's presentation on the influence of Sophocles on T.P. Kailasam's play, The Curse or Karna. Gopi on tradition versus modernity in the home and the world. Hetal on Bimala's journey of self-discovery in Tagore's The Home and the World. And finally, in the morning slot, we will have Hina's presentation on Swadeshi movement in the home and the world. So let us invite the first presenter to come and start making the presentation.
Hello everyone, I am Aarti Sarvaiya. Today is the first day of semester 3's presentation. In this presentation, I am going to deal with this topic, Karna, the voice of subaltern. This is my personal information. Points to ponder. First, about Karna, who is Karna, and then second is about subaltern theory. Third one is Karna, the voice of subaltern, conclusion, and then references. About Karna. This bitterness made a wonderful human being into a such nasty and ugly character in Mahabharata. Karna is a main character of Mahabharata. He was a great human being and showed his greatness in different situations. But because of this bitterness, in many ways it was he who turns everything wrong. He was resentful because he did not know who, whose child he was. But the people who bought him uh, did so with utmost love. His foster parents is Radha and uh, Atirtha, who love him most. And because of his com- competence and will of fate, he became Angraj, the king of Anga. He got many things and was given a position and place in the palace. In many ways, he was a sidekick of King Duryodhan. Duryodhan, uh, Duryodhan, who always takes advice from him about subaltern theory. Subaltern theory is a British word. A word subaltern is a British word that combines that Latin meaning for under, for the word sub, and the other means for the altar. And to describe this subaltern means someone of a lower class military rank. A servant or a peasant was referred to as a subaltern in medieval England. Lower ranking troops or a foot soldier were called subalterns in 17th and 18th century England. A person who works in a lower or subordinate position is known as a subaltern. Antonio Gramsci coined the term in his article Notes uh, on Italian History, which appeared in a prison notebook. The subaltern, he explained, is the oppressed underclass in a society where ruling authority wields hegemony. The theory of subaltern is popular theory in post-colonial literature that stresses how colonial power and imperialism employed ruthless measure to marginalize and silence native people. The subaltern theory has proved to be the best mode of expression for victim of discrimination of all the sorts. Subaltern studies is a relatively new subcategory of post-colonial theory. Gayatri Spivak refers to the woman, black people, colonized people, and the working class as a subaltern. Her use of the term subaltern was influenced by the Italian academic Antonio Gramsci. Gramsci frequently alluded to a submissive position in aspect of class, gender, race, and culture. Spivak's article, Can the Subaltern Speak?" focuses on how the subaltern woman is portrayed as a detached, dumb, and or unheard. Her work is mostly concerned with a woman's muteness in post-colonial studies. uh, uh, Karna, the voice of subaltern. The story of Karna begins with a misfortune of his secret birth and unfold itself amidst the unremitting gloom in injustice and insult. Uh, the intrigued story of a hero who, despite being born to royalty, was cast away by his mother, brought up lovingly by a lovely chariot and his wife. His whole life was one great struggle against a cruel destiny and all the old odds placed in his ways by iniquities of his time. For his unknowing birth and from his that's why he comes from uh, a lower class family, and that's why many times he got injustice and insult from a society. uh, on the psychological front, the stigma of his perceived lineage never left him. It requires Adhiratha, his father, to quote him the equally tragic story of Eklavya to bring him out of depression into which Guru Dronacharya's rejection for his enrollment for higher studies had pushed him. Uh, his psyche again suffered a setback when he was a debate from the tournament on the basis of his lineage, despite being a best performer of the day. His father always quotes or or compare him with the story of Eklavya. Uh, and the another big stroke came his way in a Swayamvar of Draupadi. The biggest ambition of any warrior is to display his power in battle, but the cruel fate even denied him that privilege when he was forced to sit out of the Kurukshetra war for the first 10 days. He might have looked normal from the outside, but his inner personality was surely impacted by this and many other tragedies. He was rejected and insulted by society at every step. He developed some flaws engendered by defined, defined spirit and nurtured by association with the devil design of Duryodhan, who is his benefactor prince. Uh, Duryodhan is also like a best friend of him, and but those very things seems enhance and enliven the appeal of his character. At every stage in his life, he had endured immense hardship and yet never did the deter from the path of righteousness. The various sacrifices he made were only the aspect of his towering through the complex personality. Sometimes it was hard to believe to what extent he could drive himself to adhere to his principles of not sending anybody back empty-handed from his presence. His commitment to his principal's generosity was so strong that he knew that he was virtually giving away his own life to Indra in the shape of his armor or earrings, despite having been warned beforehand by Suryadev, his divine father. In another instance, he broke the sandalwood panels of his own place for charity when he could not otherwise procure the sandalwood demanded by the old Brahmins. Before him, all the Kauravas as well as the Pandava princes, including Arjuna, had pleaded helplessness in meeting the Brahmin's request because of the non-availability of sandalwood in Hastinapur. The commitment to his principal was so deeply embedded in his psyche that he could not reach the same even in the stick of battle in his worst nightmare. Conclusion. His life went through the various pitches of tragedy and sacrifice alternative. Alternative. He displayed this sense of sacrifice continuously, but no good come out of it because he was destroyed by the one thing that mattered to him the most. He wanted to be somebody that he was not, at least in the society. Overall, all this made him unique personality with no parallel among his contemporaries. Therefore, Karna can be considered uh, undoubtedly as the unsung hero of the Mahabharata. These are my references. Thank you. Now you can have questions and you can ask me.
Hina,
I think for you, my question is, what are some of the lessons that can be learned from Karna's story?
From the story of Karna, uh, we can get the lesson that never stop doing or don't stop your goal and
Aarti, my question is what are some key moments in the play The Curse or Karna where Karna's subaltern identity is highlighted?
uh, in the play Curse of the Karna, there we can find that many ways Karna was excluded or insulted by the other characters like Arjuna and other. And in the Swayamvar of Draupadi, there also the Karna was insulted and rejected from the that. Thank you.
camera now.
Good morning to all of Good morning to all of you. Myself Anjali Rathod. On the first day of semester 3 presentation, I am going to deal with my topic symbolism of light and darkness in Arcanists and Astrologers' Day. This is my personal information. Table of contents, introduction of author and story, symbolism, the marketplace lights, the astrologer's garb and equipment, the relevance of an astrologer's day to this day, style and technique, and conclusion. Introduction to the author. Arkanay's full name Rashipuram Krishna Swami Narayan. His original name Rashipuram Krishna Swami Narayan Swami. He was born on October 10, 1906, Madras. He was died in May 13, 2001 in Madras. Notable works Swami and Friends. R.K. Narayan typically portrays the peculiarities of human relationships and the ironies of Indian daily life, in which modern urban existence clashes with ancient traditions. His style is grateful, marked by genial humor, elegance, and simplicity. R.K. Narayan is one of the three leading figures of early Indian literature in English, along with Mulkaraj Anand and Raja Rao. He is credited with bringing Indian literature in English to the rest of the world, and he is regarded as one of the India's greatest Indian English novelists. The setting for most Narayan's stories is the fictional town of Malgudi, first introduced in Swami and Friends. Introduction of short story. An Astrologer's Day was first published in 1943 in short story collection titled Cyclone and Other Stories. The story narrates a story of a day in the life of an astrologer who chooses to be one not by choice but due to the mysterious situation in the life which forced him to run away from his village and to be an astrologer. The day which the story narrates is the most important day in the life of the astrologer, and as it helps him to liberate himself from the past guilt and the circumstances which forced him to be an astrologer. This short story set against the backdrop of a bustling market town in India. The narrative revolves around an astrologer who earns his livelihood by reading plans and predicting the future. The story deals with darker side of human nature like shrewdness, revengefulness, selfishness, and hypocrisy. Human frailties are depicted in the story. Through the story, Narayan waves a tale that explores the interplay between destiny and free will and the unexpected ways in which people's lives can intersect with its vivid portrayal of Indian society and human nature. An Astrologer's Day is a captivating exploration of the complexities of his life, will and fate. Symbolism, the marketplace lights. The marketplace lights represent the illusion of enlightenment from which astrologers believes. In arcanas and astrologers' day, light and darkness symbolize the contrast between ignorance and knowledge, deceptions and truth. Light represents clarity, truth, and awareness, whereas darkness symbolizes uh, ignorance, deception, and obscurity. The fluctuating lights and swaying shadows in the marketplace represent a mystical, enchanting ambience that supplements false credibility of the astrologer. All the vendors have lights, gas lamps, or flares except astrologer who has none. He depends on the other vendors' lightning. He starts his business by midday when the crowd is large and light is enough. The story explores the theme of revelation, where light dissipates darkness, revealing the truth about the astrologer's identity and past. Ultimately, light trims our darkness, showcasing the power of truth. Guru Nayak was skeptic about astrologers' prophecy. He challenges astrologer to prove his mental. He strikes a match to light his chariot. Due to light, his face is illuminated. Light originates for the first time from astrologer's place. It is a symbol of opportunity for the astrologers to accept his crime and undergo punishment. On the contrary, he evades his recognition by Guru Nayak Shreddi. The astrologer's garb and equipment. The astrologer's garb portrayed by Narayan reflects mystics and holy men in India and the position religion holds in the culture. The astrologer's garb is a symbol reminds the reader that they are all human in character, greedy, selfish, revengeful as anyone else, and petty. The astrologers' garb and equipment, including covering cells and mystical looking charts, represent the artificially physicality of religious practice and, in turn, the ability to take advantage of people's fear of God. The astrologers' costumes and wears exhibit people to believe him unconditionally and not being skeptical. Relevance of an astrologer's day to this day. Technologically, India is developed in many towns and you find those marketplaces, astrologers and people consulting those astrologers to know solution to the problems. Street vendors are seen to this day, and migration from villagers is going to this day. The theme of the story is how an astrologer faces earlier life's deeds in present day. Astrologer who has been running from realities of life faces an adverse situation which he didn't want to face. He comes across a person who was thought to be dead, comes alive before the astrologer. Despite of development, despite of development in several aspects, ordinary men's life has not much changed. Villages and towns remained more or less same even after several decades of independence from foreign power. Style and technique. Narayan's style of writing is simple and adapted consistently throughout his works. His style is a mixture of Tamil and English. Syntax and grammar follow English rules. It is distinctive of Narayan's work in its style and structure, but also in theme. The typical appeal of Narayan's stories originates from the tension between their strong emphasis on plot and their extreme brevity. The author skillfully narrates the entire story to the reader. The narrator does not reveal all the aspects of characters at the beginning. The entire plot is dependent on the revelation made at the end. Conclusion: the story goes on to show how past can actually affect the present and future of one's life. The astrologers had committed a folly by getting into a quarrel when he was a drunk youngster, the result of which changed his entire path of life. The readers come to know at the end of the story when the astrologer says to his wife that today great lord is gone from him, that the killer was none else but the astrologer himself. The story ends with incredible twist. A murdered man turns up to consult his murderer, who is now an astrologer, regarding when will he be able to take his revenge. The murderer recognizes the murdered in the matchlight when the former had lit the chariot, but he couldn't identify his old enemy in the garb of an astrologer. This is references. Now, if you have any questions, then ask me.
Anjali, for you, my question is, how does the theme of light and darkness contribute to the overall message in this work?
The theme of light and darkness contribute uh, to the an astrologer's day. The marketplace of light and astrologer's day. Saint, he was
Anjali, how the symbol of marketplace is described in this story.
The symbol of marketplace is uh, is metaphorical represent of an astrologer uh, in this story, an astrologer's day. Thank you. Uh, okay. Very good noon to you all. Very first day of the presentation session of semester third. I'm Avani Jani, and today I'm going to deal with the topic, the woman Sita, from the very poem of Torudat Lakshman. Here is the roadmap of my presentation. First, I'm going to deal with the introduction of Torudat, then Lakshman, Sita, Ramayan as a political agenda, and can the subaltern speak, the woman Sita, and conclusion. Here is the brief summary of the whole life of Torudat, that how she struggled as she and her family is being was being Christianized. She belonged from a Kolkata family of high standing and wrote in English and French. In her late teens, she traveled and studied in both England and France together with her sister and father, as does the royal ascetic and the Hindu. Her work often carried an explicit Christian message. However, at the same time, her poetry is charged with respect for and interest in ancient language and literary traditions of India. Meenakshi T summarized the poem Lakshman with these points. The poem focuses on a small segment of exchange of dialogues between Sita and Lakshman. Most of the time, Sita bombarding Lakshman with the allegations on Lakshman. Sita accuses Lakshman for this delay in going out to save Rama. Sita's mind changes and accusations Lakshman of being disloyal to his brother. So basically, in the poem Lakshman, Sita is questioning Lakshman and doubting Lakshman and his so-called character and his mentality, and why is he so lethargic to save his brother? Just because she believes that Lakshman wants to rule her in the absence of his big brother, as the same time the Sugriv and Vali fight were going on, and how they and how he ruled his brother's wife. So because of this, the Sita was feeling very uncomfortable and doubting the character of Lakshman. Throughout the poem, Lakshman's calm composure, even in the deepest mental agony, only shows the strength of his character. He knows that he has missions in life, that of serving his brother.
The charges Sita levels against Lakshman are humiliating and degrading. Nevertheless, Lakshman stands noble and sublime. Perhaps this is what has made Torudat to title the poem Lakshman than titling it Sita, though she plays the role of the protagonist in the poem. Sita. In this first paragraph, there is a very brief biography of Sita and her life. That how she is orphan, but still while going to Raja Janak, she was orphan, and how the orphan plays vital role in the society. That like when boy is orphan, then he is free, and when the girl is orphan, there is always someone to rule her. There can be no better textbook of morals than Ramayana, which can be safely placed in the hands of youth to inspire them to higher and nobler ideas of conduct and the character. Here, the Srinivasa Iyengar says that Ramayana is the most iconic and the it is most moral epic of Indian history, driven by the understanding of Ramayana and its main characters. Hindu traditionally uh, revere Sita as the role model of womanhood. But feminists of today feel that upholding Sita as role model is tantamount to endorsing male supremacy and female subservience. Indeed, some feminists have even argued that Sita syndrome breeds domestic violence in India. The very word is very iconic and very interesting, Sita syndrome. Indian feminists have often criticized Sita as an overly submissive wife who committed suicide for an ultimately untrusting husband. uh, uh, while reading the Ramayana, one can well observe that throughout the Ramayana whole epic, Sita many times tries to suicide. But the Valmiki doesn't portray it like in that way. But he says that uh, the the earth be- between the earth she disappears, and many times that this is how the she tries to kill herself. Understanding these narratives offers valuable insight not only in the specific region in which they are told, but also the formation and the nature of the political, social, and religious dimensions of the places in inhabitants. Ramayana as political agenda. Ved Mehta raises question in the mosque and the temple. To what extent has Ramayana shaped the relationships between conservative Hindu nationalism as represented by the nationalist party and gender politics and structures in the post-colonial period? As we all know that India is becoming a Bharat, so in this way, the Ramayana is playing vital role in today's society. When we look in the YouTube, there is a epic reply shots kind of thing are appearing on your screen, and suddenly they are glorifying Sita and Ram. Personally, I believe that Ram is not a purna perfect man. Uh, 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 Purna Purushottam. He was not like that. If he was that, he would not have left Sita in all alone in the jungle while she was pregnant. So the today's patriarchy is glorifying Ram and his deeds. Narrative and the characters from both Ramayana and Mahabharata are used by the politicians in speeches to emphasize political or moral points. Another significant focus of study is women's right and quality of a life in the post-colonial India, and the way that the prevailing traditional and patriarchal views, particularly those espoused by Hindu nationalists and framed by the Ramayana, continue to shape the experience of women. Sita has always been dominant personality as she never disobeyed her husband. For example, in Aranyakan, Ram tells Sita that a Prativrata, beautiful lady Sita, to disappear in the fire until he killed the demons. And Sita obeys Ram without questioning anything. While searching for an Indian woman in the Google is showing picture of working woman, and while searching for Bhartiya Nari, Google is showing women in sari. One can differentiate what Bharat wants from its Nari to be and what India wants. From this discussion, we can say that the in this very picture that Sita, as well, all the women of India are. Are in the boundaries which are created by men in the name of religion and in the name of saving women from the society, but ultimately the boys are saving women from another boys. Here is the pictures of Indian women and Bharatiya Nari. As we can say that Indian women are very in the business clothes. It is showing the um, business mind, business woman, and the very next hand there is a Bhartiya Nari, which is she in which she is full covered with the sari. Can the subaltern speak? GRK Murthy feels proud of Sita when Sita raises question. Why do you like a common man speaking to a common woman? So basically, this incident is a very next to the incident when Ram asked Sita that she is characterless and now he cannot live with her anymore as she has lived with Ravana for so long time. And after that, the Sita is questioning. I don't think that in this she is questioning, but she is expressing herself. But the GRK Murthy feels very great about her questioning skill. Like GRK Murthy writes, "What a subtle style of questioning her husband's wisdom." Counter arguing this pride of GRK Murthy in the essay, Can Subaltern Speak? Spivak examines the role of women, particularly in the colonial Indian society, as silent actors. She argues that there is a key distinction between the terms speak and talk. There are a lot of difference between speaking and talking. Women may physically talk, but and be vocally expressive, but and according they cannot be heard. She may speak, she may talk, but the question is that how is she being heard? Is her voice is reaching to the society? I think no. Sita as a common woman. Uh, here comes my title that Sita, the woman Sita, the woman WOMEN represents all of us, all of the women of India, and in the disguise of Sita, that how men wants us to behave like Sita, like very in dominant way. Minakshi T sees Sita as a common woman in the poem Lakshman. As she argues, this poem focuses on the small segment of exchanges of dialogue between Sita and Lakshman and Torudat. Through her diction, brings out the latent fears and anxiety of Sita, which in a way contradicts the goddess Sita against the human Sita. She stays back within the Lakshman Rekha. In this sentence, she means Sita. She means women of India. As Navratri has been started, here the type of list is being published in various Hindu Jagran Manch Vibhag in the status and all. In this list, there is rules and regulations for a woman, that what shall she do and what shall she not. But I think a very one little sentence can define all these things, that how shall men behave. And this very video. Hmm?
Headset headset motion ध्यान अद्रक
Mhm.
अगर
I'm gonna try. So this is how the Swamiji says that the girl which who has become an lady in the house where she has spent her years with her family, but suddenly after going to in-laws house, she is not allowed, she shall not call her parents every day. Even though she is right, she shall not argue with her in-laws. So this is kind of the Lakshman Rekha, which is driven by the m- patriarchal society in the name of religion. Sita gets deeper and deeper into the circles of patriarchy. In this sentence, the Sita means women of India. The Lakshman Rekha, the supreme metaphor for women's restricted movement. According to the diasporic perspective, the mythological figure of Sita projects an ambivalent function of a sovereign wife and powerful symbol, emanating resistance to maintain her obedience till the end. When Sita does not get convinced by the Lakshman about the safety of her husband, she fails to send Lakshman out of Ram. Her anxiety changes to doubt, with which gets expressed through the allegations on Lakshman. Sita's character in the poem Lakshman may not be strictly in keeping with her portrayal in the Ramayana, but it is in accordance with human nature and shows the working of a woman's mind in the poem. She does not appear as an idealized queen, but as a woman who behaves as a woman in her condition ought to be. She acts impulsively and easily falls in the trap laid down for her by Ravana, the tricky and mighty king of Lanka. Conclusion: Sita is a character in Ramayana who, in many ways, represents the experiences of many Indian women. Indian patriarchy often expects women to exhibit submissive behavior while subjecting them to questioning and male degradation. Women across India face restrictions under the guise of safety, often confined to their homes. The authorities, in the name for religion, can stifle voices of women. Sita's story serves as a poignant reflection of the challenges and the constraints that many Indian women endure. When India is becoming Bharat, so we all women may become Sita, modern Sita, but the Sita will always remain under the patriarchy of Ram, Janak, and Ravan. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much. Here are my works cited, and if there is any question, you may ask now.
Avni, while considers Sita's struggle as more painful when Ram also lived without her for many years in the jungle.
Uh, There is no doubt that in the epic, in literary version, Ram and Sita both have suffered very well. Suffered very well from both sides. Sita is living with while kidnapped by Ravan, and on the other side, Ram is living in the jungle. So the question is, while when they both meet, the Ram raises question on the character of Sita, while at the same time Ram was also living in the jungle without Sita. So the question of character and characters tag applied can be applied on both Ram as well on Sita. So if Ram is degrading Sita, so this is how I feel that Sita has struggled a lot more than the Ram.
question is which reading can justify Sita?
There are lots of reading available on Sita, like feminist reading and deconstructive reading of Sita in Ramayana. But as per my opinion, the subaltern theory can be most applicable on the character Sita, as this theory. This theory adds all the aspects of feminism as well as the deconstructive reading, and this is how it can be applied on Sita. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the first day of our presentation, and in this presentation, I'm present a presentation on this topic: decoding manipulation, the astrologer's tricks in an astrologer's day by Rabindranath Tagore. My personal information. Here is a table of content. Let's start the presentation with some brief introduction of R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan's full name is Rashipuram Krishna Swami Narayan. He was born on 10th October 1906 in his grandfather's home, Madras. He is one of finest Indian author of his generation in writing in English. He was a celebrated Indian author who left a lasting literary legacy over a career spanning from the 1930s to the 1990s. Uh, He crafted a wide range of works, including novels, short story, travel books, and essays. His writings journey encompassed a significant period of Indian history, from British rules to post-independence. In his work, the characters span various social roles, and his themes delve into education, women's status, destiny, and the interplay of tradition and modernity. In his writing, we can see he write many of in Madras. His writing style varied from simple realism to subtle irony, often incorporating traditional myths and fables. Narayan's early years, influenced by his grandmother and a maternal uncle, contributed to his unique storytelling perspective. Here is a brief introduction of the short story, An Astrologer's Day. The story Astrologer's Day is unfold in the pre-independence era, Malgudi, South Indian town. In this story, Astrologer is the main character who doing this traditional business of astrology, but he is a fake astrologer because he have no knowledge about astrology, and though he successfully manipulate clients, the astrology harbors a dark past and escape. He has a dark past in his life, so he live his early life and start to create a new life. And being as an astrologer, a customer confirms that astrologer with a challenge. He answers the questions of his customer that in uh, some taking annas, or we can say rupees. The astrologers, although not wanting to agree to the challenges, he surprised the customer by correctly telling him out his difficult past and revealing that he was the person who almost killed him. He has some past that he never forgot, that she tries to kill her one person. The astrologer reveals that he once led a very wild life, and including a violent incident with her customers. So, because he murdered one of a man, he leave his village. The story shows the life of the astrologer. He feels surprised in last of the story, and people can change even if they seems normal or dishonest at first. This narrative portrays a complex character's journey from the fake astrologers to redeemed individual. It reveals how unexpected twists and turns can alter one's destiny, and offers a critical view of depiction and personal transformation. The character astrologer. Uh, the Here is the main character of the story, short story, who is the not real astrologer, as I mentioned in earlier, who have no, who has no any knowledge about astrology. He decides his customers through his fake appearance and the use of figurative language associated with astrology. Uh, uh, in his life, one day that man come in the village to find the man who who tried to kill him. This man seeks revenge but doesn't recognize the astrologer and meet that astrologer, and the astrologers know that this is the man who tries to he kills. The astrologers manage it, convince the man that the person he's seeking is already died in an accident. This false information brings a relief and satisfaction to both of them, astrologer and the person. And the astrologer has been burdened by the belief that he killed the villager, and the villager was seeking revenge against him. Here the character of the astrologer that uh, is not good, but he have some personal problem also, so he tries to do astrology and make money for their life, his life, and earning money from this business. We can see these astrologers in contemporary times. Uh, we are personally, I believe this is not a good, and this is a fate of astrology, because we can see in the news channel in early morning when we start any of news channel, we can see the these types of astrologers who give their knowledge, valuable knowledge to us, that do that and do that, so you can do make money, you will be married to a good person. You can read this for this धनु हनुमान जी की आरती करे और रुके कार्य पूरे होंगे. This is not a good thing that you have a problem that do aarti of Hanuman ji and you will relieve that problem. You can see that these both newspaper cuttings, that how they give advertise and earn money, and fake, this is the I think this is the fake of. And yeah, the next one is app of Divya Bhaskar. In this app you can see the rashi fal, and this is the all rashis. And when you touch any of this, they have two options, that one is the whole year of your rashi fal, and only one day of your rashi fal. I don't think that they are give this all this, in the day you will face this and this all that. But in real life we can't find any of this in our life. Comparative analysis of this both astrologer and character of this astrologer and this contemporary astrologer, some similarity and differences. Both astrologers are focuses on the clients, and the both have some astrologers tools, which through they believe the clients or customers that they are giving the solution of the life, and they will give remove all the uh, problems of life. And difference is that in the contemporary astrologers, they use the digital tools like computer, websites, and many other things. And in the old astrology they only have relies on the face-to-face interconnection. In the story, astrologer use regimented setup in the marketplace, where contemporary astrologers have online platform. We can see we give many facilities in the news channel. We can see a good platform and AC and the good things all have the contemporary astrologers. In the story we can see the how astrologers situation, that the small things he has to sit on under the tree, and not much things he had. In the contemporary, astrologers often use computer generated natal charts to offer clients detailed information about their birth chart. Nowadays, we have the birth charts, and we can generate this in computer also. In traditional, we can see the astrologers make it on his hand. Clients' belief and motives, how they motives the clients, and they trap all these clients. Astrology in India, astrology is a very big business, or we can see it is a worldwide business. These have a worth billions of dollars. In India it is even more popular and keeps growing because of technology. Many people in India believes in superstitious. The astrologers quickly become skilled in the trade, understanding what his clients want to hear. The only thing they are success in this field, that they know the what customers want to listen from their mouth, and they easily said that now okay, you are coming with you are come here, and now your all problems are removed, and I will help you. And they some money, and they are all doing for of some of money. Sorry, this is some mistake. His questions are straightforward, and he acts like he knows everything. Every astrologers, I think every astrologers do these things. Many people in India are superstitious and act irrationals. They believe that the stars and planets in the sky can influence their fortune. For example, we can say that some clients have don't marry, so they go to the astrologer and say that I want to marry to someone, and they say, for example, that this shani graha will the Shanigra is problematic in this Kundli, and the Mangal is problematic. I think how the Shani and Mangal is so far from us, and how it will that this is not good. Because of this belief, some who practice astrology and numerology, palmistry, and similar things can trick people into giving them money. Here is my references. Uh, if anyone have the uh, question, they can ask.
Bhavyata, in your opinion, what ethical responsibilities should contemporary astrologers have when dealing with the clients who genuinely seek guidance and advice?
Uh, if astrology is exist in a right way, the astrologer should uh, privacy sorry truthful the client, and make a privacy for this for that customers or clients. And personally, I believe that if anybody needs a psychiatrist to their life, so they have to suggest that you please don't come in here, and please go to and meet the psychiatrist for her or his good life. This is the I mean, for my opinion, this is the ethical responsibility of contemporary astrologers.
How does the astrologer manipulate his clients and what techniques does he employ?
uh, as many astrologers do their simple technique, that giving them compliments, and feeling clients good, and offering a solution and opinions that this problem will remove he remove all this problem from clients or customers life. And using some prompts and charts to prove that he is the right, and he is the person that he will the person that he is the remove all these problems in faced by clients. And they act very confidently in blindly. So these are the astrologers do techniques in front of their clients or customers. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today is the first day of presentation season 3, and on this first day, I'm going to present my presentation on characterizing both, like the character of Sandip and Nikhil, and the dichotomy of Gandhi and Tagore itself. So let's start. This is my personal information. So these are some points to ponder which I am going to discuss in today's presentation. Here you can see. So first is introduction of author. As you all know who is Rabindranath Tagore, so no need to explain anything. He was born on 1861 and he died in 1941, and he was a famous writer of Bengal. And with his translation of some of his poem, he became rapidly known in the West. In fact, his fame attained a luminant height, taking him across continent on the lectures, tours, and tours of friendship. Forward, he became the voice of Indian spiritual heritage, and for India, especially for Bengal, he became a great living institution. So these are some of his famous work like Gitanjali, Kabuliwala, and this Home and the World. And Rabindranath Tagore died on August 7, 1941. These are some key facts of novel Home and the World, author Rabindranath Tagore, published in 1916, setting early 20th century of India. Genre is fiction and novel. Major characters are Nikhil, Bimala, and Sandip. And themes like nationalism, identity, and gender relationships. So, this is the purpose of this presentation, exploring the ideologies contrast between Rabindranath Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi, analyzing how characters Sandip and Nikhil represent these contrasting ideologies, examining short portions from the Home and the World. So, first is character sketch of Nikhil and Sandip. So, according to Subrata Sada, the relationship between Sandip and Nikhil, despite being good friend, is one of extreme duality. Although they are the male protagonist, the essential of their characters are bluntly contrasting from one another. One hand, Sandip is a strong and aggressive character who is very much militant nationalist in his approach, and after that, on the other hand, Nikhil is a passive and mature thinker who is strongly against violence and extreme nationalism. Being a strong believer in rational thoughts and action, Nikhil believes that to worship my country as as a god is to bring a curse upon it. Whereas Nikhil embodies something larger than itself. Sandeep operates on his own motives by clocking them in the Swadeshi movement. Sandip's nationalism is a fate of the rich and well-to-do people. So Sandip's nationalism is for rich people or for himself only. The poor are only crushed beneath the weight of demand of the nationalism for the country's sake. The poor, like Panchu and Miraj, so these are some minor characters of the Home and the World, in the novel are ample proof of how the downtrodden are merely doubly explored in the wake of the old destruction in the name of nation. Nikhil, on the other hand, is on the wholly opposite of Sandip. Through the character of Nikhil, Tagore highlights his concept of working for the nation, a positive and more vibrant endeavor for the country's development. Is presented through the portrayal of the character of Nikhil. So he has a positive attitude towards the nationalism or towards this whole thing of freedom. And another hand, the Sandip, who is the violent people, who is he was fight for this nationalism for his own sake. Um, Nikhil's way of nation building is by working for the country's development. His belief is, I quote, "Let us dedicate our lives to remove the root of this sorrow in our country." I unquote. So now, ideologies of Gandhi and Tagore. So these both are the prominent political writers, or we can say nationalists of India. Gandhi was an ardent nationalist. He took up the path of political struggle with the support of the mass, and Tagore was an ardent universalist, condemned naked nationalism with his vision of universal human unity, of his equation of nation with the universe. Tagore believes that in Gandhi's program of a boycott, there was nothing except the blind faith of people for Gandhi's concept. According to Tagore, the question of using or burning British made clothes is one of the economists of decide. Moreover, for a country which had inadequate clothing, such as boycott was nothing but pure superstition. Tagore did not agree to follow Gandhi blindly because the poorer section who could not afford, like the richer landlords, the luxury of burning clothes. They were forcibly made to burn their clothes and the cost of their jobs and wages and led them to the brink of starvation. So, according to this. Manjula, she is a Redivari Manjula. She's an author, and she's saying in article this Gandhi's ideology is to burning and boycotting the British clothes and burning them is for rich people, like Sandip were doing. And according to Tagore, he did not agree with Gandhi's ideology. Like Nikhil was disagree with Sandip's ideology. He was saying that poor are suffering in these things. Like they don't have this kind of rich money, or rich people have this luxury. Poor are, doesn't have this kind of luxury to burn their clothes. According to this writer, I quote, I believe it to be my duty to fight the habit of blind obedience. So this quotation is by Tagore. Secondly, I feel that the cloth to be burnt is not mine. It belongs to people who are sorely in need of it. He who seems to be doing an act of sacrifices through these incendiaries have other sources of supplies. But those who are really hit cannot strike out of doors because of their nakedness. So yeah, he was oppressing Gandhi's boycott movement. This there is no doubt there at a time the two were found to be miles apart from each other, but at the same time it was also the spirit of truth which made them collaborate in the common task, and their minds were equal. This is the ideology of Mahatma Gandhi. Like he was believing in non-violence, though he were supporting the boycott and burning the clothes, like Sandip. And Rabindranath ideology was towards humanistic approach. Like he was not supporting this burning clothes and all the things because poor are suffering from for that, and he was approaching humanistic. His approach was humanistic, he was approaching this for nationalism. Sandip the Gandhi perspective. According to Neha Raghav, Tagore is the present novel present two ways of working for one's nation. Sandip's nationalism seems to have a great analogy to Bookman's description. Through Sandip, Tagore delineates his criticism to destruction nationalism. So, in Sandip's characters, we also find that he has a fake nationalism in his own traits. And Sandip is an unscrubbed man who boasts of his love for the country. He is a major propaganda of the Swadeshi movement and wants to arouse the common people in support to Swadeshi cause. Sandeep takes a large sum of money from Bimlas for this also. His ramshackle corruption known no bounds, and he uses the sum thus acquires through the theft for personal gains and comfort. The lust of money and selfishness of the movement activist is critiqued by the author. Sandeep represents himself as a realist, one who brutally confronts the world. He criticizes Nikhil for how he delights in a misty vision of his world. Sandip describes those two shares his views as a iconoclast of meter, and he and his fellow insolates are the flesh eater of the world. We have teeth and nails. We pursue the grab and fear. Tear. So this was by Atkinson, David Atkinson. So here is one video. In this video is from Satyajit Ray's movie Ghare Bahir, and in this video, Sandip's ideology was shown, like his how he was thinking about nationalism and how he was working. So in this, like Sandeep's ideology was that, like they were burning goods or clothes for their country. For Sandeep, the end justifies the means, and he argues that virtually any human actions can be executed if the stakes are sufficiently high. This is the only fundamental principle or a principle of existence. I quote, nature surrenders herself, he indicates, but only to the robbers, for she delights in this forcefully desire. So this quote is by Sandip, and in the David Atkinson's article. Sandip is not, however, an unintelligent or unaware man, and it is this which makes him especially frightened. Sandip, for example, knows that Nikhil is a man of principle of the relationship. He says, then again there is Nikhil. Though he be laughed at him as I may, I cannot get rid of ideas that he is my friend. At first, I give no thoughts to his point of view, but of late it has begun to shame and hurt me. I unquote. Sandip recognizes the flaws in his own thinking. Rather than confront these flaws, however, he preservedly chooses to ignore them. The external pressures of mass action thereby sweeps aside any sense of moral consequences. Nikhil the Tagore's perspective. So, in this novel, Tagore himself presented through the character of Nikhil. So, there are some ideologies which matches to Tagore with Nikhil. Early in the novel, Nikhilesh, who often function as a mouthpiece for Tagore's view in the novel, says that though he loves his country, nation, he cannot place nationalism over humanity, like Tagore does. Reflecting Tagore's view, which espouse internationalism and humanitarianism, Nikhilesh is not understood by his political immature wife and ignored by his self-service and uncorrupt friend. Nikhil, on the other hand, is on the whole opposite of Sandip. Through the character of Nikhil, Tagore highlights his concept of working for the nation. A positive and more vibrant endeavor for the country's development is presented through the portrayal of character of Nikhil. Nikhil, who belongs to rich landlording class, is in no way similar to other. Like he was a landlord, he was rich, though he was not supporting this fake nationalism. Their poor are suffering. He knows the bad consequences of violence used in the name of nationalist movement by Sandip and his fellow workers. Where Sandip believes in division and violence, Nikhil believes in the doctrine of love and freedom of choice. So here is also another video from Satyajit Ray's film, and in this short video, it's shown that how Nikhil trying to convince or trying to explain his ideology. So in this video they were asking him like you are not going to burn your clothes and goods from the foreign. He was saying that no, I'm not going to burn that because it is not belong to me. And another question were raised that you are rich, then why are you not doing that? And then Nikhil were answering them like this is not my personal agenda, this is for poor people who are suffering from this Swadeshi movement and other things. Nikhil is the enlightened humanist who asserts that truth cannot be imposed. Freedom is necessary for choice and is critically to individual growth and fulfillment. It is it is this freedom which he insists in necessary if he and Bimla are truly to known on another. While Nikhil the Tagore himself initially supports Swadeshi, he recognized the value of the outside world. And he looks to serve a great cause and mere national interest. I am willing, he insists, to serve my country, but my worship I reserve for rights which is far greater than my country. To worship my country as a good God is to bring a curse upon it. So this is a quotation by Nikhil. For Nikhil, however, it is not that the world is chaos. Rather, each individual is given the freedom and opportunity to participate in the limitless creativity of world. Let's conclude this presentation. In conclusion, Rabindranath Tagore's novel Home and the World offer a profound exploration of ideological dichotomy between two Indians' most prominent figure, Mahatma Gandhi and Tagore himself, through the characters of Sandip and Nikhil. The novel masterfully captures the philosophical and political currents of its time and provides a rich tapestry of ideas and contrasting perspective. Like through the character of Sandip, the fervent nationalist leader who witnesses an embodiment of some of the more extreme and radical element of the India's nationalist movement, reminiscent of a representation of Mahatma Gandhi's advocacy of for direct action and civil obedience as a mean to attain political independence. Conversely, Nikhil, a character characterized by rationality, modernity, and a commitment to peacefully method of reform, align more closely with Tagore's own belief. In the importance of individual freedom, education, and personal growth, there are distinction views on nationalism presented in the novel. First is from Nikhil, second is from Bimla, and third is from Sandip. So these are references which I have used. Thank you so much. Now I am open for a question. You can ask me question.
Drashti. Although Sandip and Nikhil shared the same enthusiasm for the nationalist movement, what, in your opinion, could be the reason for Sandip's more aggressive nationalism?
Okay. So, like you were asking about the aggression of Sandip's towards nationalism, is that he was doing for the sake of his own personal motive, and he wants to, like, he wants a political power, and he also showcased by Tagore as a radical nationalist, and he wants to be a leader. But there is a no chances of being a leader to suffer someone's life. Yeah, so Sandeep's aggressiveness can be the reason for his political power and his leadership, his strive for leadership.
Drashti, my question is that what impact does the ideological con- conflict between Sandip and Nikhil have on the themes and narrative of the novel?
Okay, so the narrative of the novel is like first person and multiple narrative as well, and the impact of ideologies of these two character is the clash between the tradition and modernity, and the pursuit of freedom. Like they have different kind of ideologies. Nikhil has this modernity and this like logical ideology of him, and Sandeep has radical ideology, and he was doing this for his own sake. And this complexity of relationship, like they were friends, but though there were two different ideologies. And yeah, that's the thing. Like themes of this novel is also nationalism and Swadeshi movement, and also the relationship of these three characters. Yeah, I hope you satisfied with my answer. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, I am Gayatri Nimavat. On the first day of presentation of semester 3, I am going to deal with the topic Nationalism in the novel by Rabindranath Tagore, The Home and the World. This is my personal information. This is entire roadmap of my presentation. First is introduction and about author, then what is nationalism, then nationalism in Tagore, then historical background of the time of publication of the novel, then the home and the world as critic of nationalism, and then as an example, Tagore's Gora, nationalism as a civilizational universalism, then conclusion. So first introduction. The Home and the World is a phenomenal work of Indian literature by Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. It takes a global view of the concept of nationalism and patriotism. The novel is set in Bengal during the independence era of Indian political and domestic life in the background of the Swadeshi movement. The Swadeshi movement began in 1905 and gained major force against the decision on division of Bengal. In The Home and the World, the question of the two spheres and its imbrication of the issues of women's freedom and Indian nationalism is explicitly addressed in Indian fiction for the first time. Rabindranath Tagore, the author, was born on 7th May 1861 in Calcutta, India, and died in 7th August 1941 in Calcutta. He was a Bengali poet, short story writer, song composer, playwright, essayist, and painter who introduced new prose and verse forms and the use of the colloquial languages into Bengali literature, thereby freeing it from traditional models based on classical Sanskrit. He was highly influential in introducing Indian culture to the West and vice versa, and he is generally regarded as the outstanding creative artist of early 20th century in India. In 1930, he became the first non-European to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. Then, at the starting of presentation, first let understand what is nationalism. According to Gulner, nationalism is primarily a political principle which holds that the political and the national unit should be congruent. Nationalism as a sentiment or as a movement can best be defined in terms of this principle. Nationalist sentiment is the feeling of anger aroused by the violation of the principle or the feeling of satisfaction aroused by its fulfillment. A nationalist movement is one actuated by a sentiment of this kind. Nationalism is a theory of political legitimacy which requires that ethnic boundaries should not cut across political ones, and in particular, that ethnic boundaries within a given state, a contingency already formally excluded by the principle in its general formulation, should not separate the power holders from the rest. Then, according to Benedict Anderson, nation can be defined as the imagine community. In his work, he tried to give definition of nationalism, the image in community, but he finds that it is extremely difficult to analyze the concept of nation, nationality, and nationalism. According to him, nationalism is a recent and modern creation, nations being thought of by most people as old and timeless. Nationalism is a universal in that every individual belongs to a nation, and each nation is supposedly completely distinct from every other nation. The nationalism is an idea so influential that people will die for their nations, at the same time an idea difficult to define. The nationalism and Tagore. According to Tagore, in his work, he is try to define nationalism. In his work, Nationalism, he said that nationalism is the aspect of a whole people as an organized power. This organization instantly keeps up the insistence of the popular on becoming strong and efficient, but this tenuous effort after strength and efficiency drain man's energy from his higher nature, where he is self-sacrificing and creative, for thereby man's power of sacrifice is diverse from his ultimate object, which is moral, to the maintenance of this organization which is mechanical. And he also tried to define nationalism in India, that nationalism is a great menace. It is the particular thing which for years has been at the bottom of India's troubles. And in as much as we have been ruled and dominated by a nation that is strictly political in its attitude, we have tried to develop within ourselves, despite our inheritance from the past, a belief in our eventual political destiny. So through this we understand that Tagore's point of view toward nationalism is not that much good as Gandhiji or other nationalists. Tagore took the view that since nationalism emerged in the post religious laboratory of industrial capitalism, it was only an organization of politics and commerce that bring harvest of wealth or carnivals of materialism by spreading tentacles of greed, selfishness, power, and prosperity for churning up the baser instinct of mankind and sacrificing in the process the moral man, the complete man, to make room for for the political and commercial man, the man of limited purpose. Nationalism, according to Tagore, is not a spontaneous self expression of man as social being, where human relations are naturally regulated so that a man can develop ideals of life in cooperation with one another, but rather a political and commercial union of a group of people in which they congregate to maximize their profit, progress, and power. It is the organized self interest of a people where it is least human and least spiritual. Tagore deemed nationalism a recurrent threat to humanity because with his propensity for the material and the rational, it trampled over the human spirit and human emotion. It upset man's moral balance, obscuring his human side under the shadow of soulless organization. Tagore also found the fetish of nationalism a source of war, hatred, and mutual suspicion between nations. In The Home and the World, through the character of Nikhil, Tagore alter ego in the novel, who is patriotic but wouldn't place nation above truth and conscience, says. And he says, I am willing to serve my country, but my worship I reserve for right which is far greater than country. To worship my country as a god is to bring curse upon it. This is the point of view of Nikhil, Tagore through Nikhil. However, Nikhil's friend Sandip, a charismatic but unconscionable nationalist to whom any action in the name of the nation is right, no matter how far it may be from truth or justice, explained country's need must made into a good, and one must set aside conscience by putting the country in its place. Tagore saw this radical view of Sandip, in which the nation is apotheosis and placed above truth and conscience as a recipe for disaster. It breeds exclusivism and dogmatism through the Hegelian dichotomous logic of self-fundamental hostility toward the others. Thus, every nation becomes narcissistic and consider the presence of another a threat to itself, waging war against other nation for its self-fulfillment and self-aggrandizement becomes a justifiable and even holy act. Tagore was opposed to the idea of the nation. He was even more fiercely opposed to India joining the bandwagon of nationalism. This would compromise India's history and identity as a culture and bring it under the shadow of the West. He warned, we in India must make up our minds that we cannot borrow other people's history, and that if we stifle our own, we are committed suicide. When you borrow things that do not belong to your life, they only serve to crash your life. I believe that it does India no good to compete with Western civilization in its own field. India is no beggar of the West. Then for to know the nationalism in The Home and the World, we have to understand the historical background of the time of publication of the novel The Home and the World. The Home and the World is set in the year 1905. During this time, Lord Curzon, the viceroy of Bengal divided Bengal presidency into two parts, Eastern and Western. This decision was in accordance with the British colonial policy of divide and rule. The decision resulted in widespread protests, culminating in the Swadeshi movement. Initially, Tagore was an enthusiastic supporter and advocate of the movement, but with the passage of time, as the movement spread, Tagore gradually started to get more and more frustrated and disillusioned with it. By this time, the movement began to indulge and valorize violence. Communal riots between Hindu and Muslim took place in 1906 and 1907. The Swadeshi movement between Hindu and Muslim is important in this background for the background of this novel. Then all this pain and distress, Tagore to movement as far as possible. He wrote The Home and the World as a critic of nationalism in general and the Swadeshi movement in its pitfall in particular. Then The Home and the World as critic of nationalism. Initially, the novel seems to explore the forces of modernism. At the starting, we can see the force of modernism, but the novel's sharp criticism of the nationalistic politics in general and the Swadeshi movement in particular never misses the eye. Like Nikhil, Tagore too tried to promote some indigenous Swadeshi habits and enterprises long ago but failed. It must be taken in mind in this context that Tagore was completely against the moderate Congress way of mendicancy. The Home and the World was Tagore's critic of extremist nationalism in the sense it's a fetishing of the nation and the subordination of morality to its worship of nation. While Sandip representing Swadeshi nationalist has a dual character in his masculinity. He has a hard, aggressive conception of masculinity which he exploits to draw other men and women. In one hand, he worships Bimla as an embodiment of motherland, and on the other, he treats her as an object of eroticized patriotic adoration. Nikhil, on the contrary, represent the ideal of zamindari paternalism to which Tagore himself subscribed. His very presence allows for a deep critique of Swadeshi extremist nationalism based on fetishization of the nation. Tagore also criticized the ruthless instrumentalism of everything in the name of the nation. In The Home and the World, Sandip's story begin this way: that the important man says, that which has come to my share in mine, and the weak man assent. But the lesson of the whole world is that is really mine, which I can snatch away. My country does not become mine simply because it is the country of my birth. It becomes mine on the day when I am able to win it by force. Tagore here not only critiquing the extremist form of Indian nationalism but also hinted at Sandip's villainy at the very outset. In one place, Nikhil burst out against the British atrocities in India as well as the atrocities perpetrated by the Indian nationalist terrorists. It was Buddha who conquered the world, not Alexander. This is untruth. When stated in dry prose, oh, when shall we be able to sing it? When shall all these most intimate truths of the universe overflow the pages of painted books and leap out in a sacred stream like the Gangas from the Gangotri? Nikhil and Sandip here represent two opposing vision for the nation. Bimla allegorically again representing the country. It torn between the two. She does not know what would be the right guiding principle for her. Nikhil's vision is to vision of enlightened humanitarian. It is based on a true equality and harmony of individual and nation. On the contrary, Sandip's vision is the vision of radical, narrow minded, and aggressive nationalists. This vision creates a powerful sense of patriotism in individual. It threatens to replace their moral sensibility with national prejudice and blind fanaticism. Then Nikhil pronounced a universal feeling similar to that of Tagore himself throughout the novel. This results in a one-to-one argument that he has with Sandip. Sandip randomly equates God with nation, while Nikhil proves how it is imperative to bring together the entire human community to find God, and how the cult of nationalism through a development of national egoism and bigotry only spoil that purpose. Through this dialogue between Sandip and Nikhil, we can see the nationalism and two contrary view. Sandip says, I truly believe my country to be my God. I worship humanity. God manifests himself in man and in his country. Then Nikhil says, if that is what you really believe, there should be no difference for you between man and man, and so between country and country. Then Sandip says, quite true, but my powers are limited, so my worship of humanity is continued in the worship of my country. Nikhil says, I have nothing against your worship as such, but how is it you propose to conduct your worship of God by hating other countries in which he is equally manifest? Nikhil loves his country as much as, if not more than Sandip, but he won't allow his love for the country to go beyond his conscience. He says, I am willing to serve my country, but my worship I reserve for right, which is far greater than my country. To worship my country as God is to bring curse upon it. On the other hand, Sandip believes that one ought to say aside conscience by putting the country in its place. According to Tagore, this radical view of Sandip will apotheosis the nation and place it away from the truth and conscience, and this certainly would head for a disaster. This thoughtless adoration of the nation and his belief that any action, however atrocious or unprincipled, is permissible if done for the sake of the nation, ultimately turn him into the fearsome, fanatic, and dreadful criminal. Unhesitatingly, he uses conspiracy or brutality to achieve his objective. Then, as an example, we can see the Tagore's novel Gora. Here, we can find nationalism as civilizational universalism. Gora is widely considered one of the most important novel even written in British India, for it is an allegory of Indian nationalism, representing largely Tagore's own view of it, whereby religious division is replaced by worship of Indians' natural and cultural diversity. A novel steeped in the colonial experiences which highlights the resultant crisis of personal identity. Gora brings out this crisis of identity as a result of East West encounter. In Gora, Tagore dwells on the civilization aspect of nationalism, one that is needed in a multicultural, multi ethnic, and multi religious country like India. The India of Bharatvarsh, the idea of Bharatvarsh is a key concept in Gora. It is not merely a geographical area, it is identified with faith, religion, tradition, customs, and the indigenous values of subcontinent. At the end of the novel, Gora asks to be taught the mantra of that deity who belongs to all Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Brahmo, the doors of whose temple are never closed to any person of any caste or race, the deity not only of the Hindus but of Bharatvarsh. The novel is not just a search for self-identity but for secularism that is inclusive and indigenous at the same time. Gora's movement from a Hindu militant to inclusiveness echoes Tagore's critique of militant Swadeshi, Hindutva, and nationalism. Gora is a call to form yourself into a nation and resist this encroachment of the nation. To conclusion, we can say that post-colonial critics like Ernest Gellner and Benedict Anderson have shown how nationalism results into the sentiments of illogicality, bigotry, and hatred in people. Leela Gandhi has spoken of its byproduct, racial discrimination and hatred, and the eagerness with which citizens are ready to both kill and die for it. Franz Fanon, even before that, has elaborated that although the global of nationalism is to create a horizontal relationship and fraternity within its people, in reality, the nation never speak of the hopes and aspiration of the entire image community, and hierarchy, factional hegemony, disparity, and exploitation remain a common feature in its. In the novel The Home and the World, in Sandip's action, Tagore has anticipated all these drawbacks of nationalism mentioned by later cultural critics. So these are work citation. Thank you. If you have any question, then you can ask.
Gayatri, my question is that how does Nikhil's love for his country differ from Sandip's, and why does Nikhil reserve his worship for right rather than the country itself?
Nikhil's love for his country and Sandip's love for his country is totally different. Sandip is kind of cruel or sometimes he became harmful as well to save his nation, while Nikhil's perspective toward nationalism is quite good. He was he always worshipping his country, but with the perspective of right. He also preserve national right as well. So this is.
Gayatri, my question is that what is the difference between nationalism in The Home and the World and Gora? These novels are by Rathod.
So in both the novel we find nationalism as the theme, but in The Home and the World there is nationalism which represent some kind of harmful or it is showing two type of nationalism by two character. While in Gora there is the character Gora who is fighting with identity and with morality, or identity with and with his prejudice. This is the difference between both these novel. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Katariya Ghanshyam, and my presentation topic is the influence of Sophocles on T.P. Kailasam's play The Curse or Karna. This is my introduction. The table of content. In this presentation, we will discuss about the intriguing subtitle of the play, introduction of the author, background of the play, about Sophocles, Oedipus, the tragic hero, Karna as a tragic hero, and conclusion. The intriguing subtitle, The Curse or Karna, an impression of Sophocles in 5x. This is the title given by Kailasam to this play. In K.R.S. Iyengar's words, it is described by the author as an impression of Sophocles in 5x, and indeed there is something of an Oedipus fatality and glow in Kailasam's Karna. Destiny weaves its coil relentlessly, and whether whichsoever he may turn, Oedipus or Karna, he is caught in the meshes, checkmate at every turn, thwarted and defeated again and again, but also purified and glorified in the progress. About the author, T.P. Kailasam in full, Tyagaraja Paramsiva Iyer Kailasam was an Indian prominent playwright and in Kannada literature. Literary criticism in Kannada literature is said to start after Kailasam's work. He was given the title of Prahasana Prapitamaha. That means the great grandfather of humorous plays. He was also given the he is said as the one and only Kailasam of Kannada. His famous English plays are Fulfillment, Purpose, and the Brahmin's Curse, or it can be said as the Curse or Karna. The background of the play, this play Karna is written from is the theme of the play is taken from Adi Parva, Sabha Parva, and Karna Parva from the Mahabharata. Vyasa dismissed the Karna in the word of Draupadi as Papishtama Mathim Karnam, and he is represented as the evil genius of Duryodhana in the great epic Mahabharata. In Kailasam's play, all this is changed, and it raises once again the fundamental question of the freedom of art. So, in this play, Kailasam takes the creative liberty of changing the perspective of the character of the Karna. In literature, as in politics, no man has a right to invade the freedom of another. Uh, by transposing Karna's education under Parshuram to an earlier period of his life, by keeping out the charioteer from the scene of context, by giving to Karna a speech while in exactly the opposite of what Vyasa gives him in the Sabha, by giving a distorted version of Gita, by withholding Krishna's speech to Karna, where he gives a catalogue of his sins of commission and omission, by suppressio veri, changing the perspective of this tale, and suggestio falsi, falsify some facts to give this perspective in this play. Kailasam has produced a Karna who may not recognize himself in the original, in the Vyasas, the epic Mahabharata. Introduction of Sophocles. Sophocles was a playwright and the second of the three greatest Greek writers of tragedy, with Aeschylus and Euripides. He is known best for what he wrote about Oedipus, the mythological figure who proved central to Freud and the history of psychoanalysis. The He produced more than 100 of plays, but in this present time, only seven of the tragedies is survived in the time, and 80 or 90 of his plays are in fragments. Those The seven plays that are still in this present is Oedipus Tyrannus, Oedipus at Colonus, Antigone, Electra, Trachini, Ajax, and Philoteps. The tragic hero of Sophocles, Oedipus. In Oedipus, in here we will discuss about what is the we can say connect to the this play. Karna in Oedipus, he keeps his virtuosity throughout. He is wise for having defeated the phoenix is in solving the riddle, which in turn during the plague, and when Creon said they must find the killer of King Louis, they turned to him because he is wise and able to solve the puzzle. Oedipus also shows compassion and empathy to the children who are suffering from the plague that has besieged. The most important virtue that Oedipus has kept despite the flow of murdering his birth father, marrying his mother, and having children with her at the oracle claimed is that of integrity. When the Delphi oracle told Creon that they must cast out the perpetrator of this murder of King Louis, once Oedipus realized that he was the one who did this disparaging act, he himself punished himself with gouging out his eyes, going blind, and asking to be cast out. So, in the character of Oedipus, he may have this fatality of not knowing those his birth facts, but he is still a person with integrity and wiseness, that he knows the how to do justice of facts, and that's how even if he was the perpetrator, he punished himself, despite the fact that the fate has not in his hand. Now, the Karna as the tragic hero. The dramatist represents him as the bejeweled bubble of the jeering gods. Karna, as understood by Kailasam, is, however, the victim of a tragedy of fate. A curse hangs over his birth, life, and death. The Karna of Mahabharata, like many other characters in the epic, but he, more than others, is a web of mingled yarn, good and ill together, valor and vindictiveness, magnanimity and meanness. it was not very difficult, therefore, for Kailasam to turn Karna's life into a tragic drama. In the character of Oedipus, there is arrogance and quickness in his decision, and also there is a fatality in here in Karna. There is also a duality of things, that he is cursed, and also he is still a virtuous person and righteous, but his action is in favor of wrong. The working out of the curse punctuates the didramatic action, giving every time a new edge of despair to Karna's giant endeavors to redeem himself and redeem his royal friend and master, Duryodhana. And he dies as he has lived, valorous and bountiful and pure, yet also frustrated and discomfited. In Oedipus, he does not know about the facts, and eventually the prophecy affects him, but he is still a virtuous person and have a wiseness to punish himself. In here, Karna have this curse that affect his life, even though he is trying to live purely. This can be seen in this dialogue between Karna and him, where he is in a way trying. He's asking, not asking, but he is questioning his fate, and is hurt. He's saying that, bear with me, Brikadara. What stayed my hand from slaying thee on the day of Pariksha? What numbed my arm on the day of Panchali Swayamvara? What paralyzed mine arm and did stop me from rescuing her from clutch of human brutes? Was but a relentless curse of dread Rama. Pity me, the helpless victim of a Brahmin's curse. So here uh, he is complaining about this curse, that even though he is trying to live as pure and righteous, in his action, there in between there is always this Brahmin's curse is dwelling upon him. Conclusion. In Kailasam's play, Karna is redeemed by nobility of motives precisely because passion is not translated into action. Karna thus converts his inferiority complex into a moral superiority and a curse into a blessing. So his action is not supporting his will, and the curse is coming out most of the time, and he is also in the wrong side. But he is trying to live with purity and with compassion, and that's how he is creating an escape from his curse, and he is trying to be a righteous person. Karna is affiliated not by the Brahmin's curse, but by that which is the cause of that curse, the irregularity of his origin. The sins of parents are visited upon the children. He is the victim of society's will to live. Society cast him out. Having received no kindness from society, he owes it no obligation. The victim of society turns out to be the enemy of society. His obligations are purely personal, and Karna becomes the nemesis of Pandavas. So the his action his the this curse have less to do to his character than more the society, and his birth facts is responsible for his tragic flow. In the same way, if we see the flow of the Oedipus, then we can find that his action is less responsible than the fact that his birth facts are hidden from him, and that's why the tragic flow happens, because his birth facts are hidden, and that's how it affects his action. This is references. Thank you, everyone. If now you can ask me questions.
So, Ghanshyam, my question is, how does the theme of pet in the Curse of Karna resemble Sophocles' work?
The theme of fate in Sophocles' character of this Oedipus, he does not know about his birth facts and only about this prophecy. And as the story goes on, these facts is cleared and the mystery reveals, and that's how in shock this fate is playing role. But in Curse of Karna, there is this curse is already given to Karna, but whenever he tries to do something righteous, and then this curse is affecting when he is battling with Arjun, or trying to defend Draupadi, then only this is coming out, and it is affecting Karna's actions, and that's how this fate is affecting this character of Karna.
Ghanshyam, according to you, which key differences exist in tragic elements of Oedipus and Karna's story?
uh, the difference between the elements of Oedipus and Karna is that in Oedipus, the story starts with when he is already became the king of Thebes, and is a mystery around the murder of King Louis, and then one by one mystery is revealed, and the fate affects the character of Oedipus. In Karna, the beginning of the play, in the first act, he is cursed by Rama, and as play goes, we see that whenever he is trying to do a righteous thing, the curse is affecting him. So this is the difference, that one is not knowing his fate or facts, and one is able to know, and he knows that, but he cannot escape that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Gopi Dervaliya. Today, I am going to deal with this topic: tradition versus modernity in The Home and the World, a famous novel by Rabindranath Tagore. This is my personal information.
checking that video. If you are sure. So the entire screen will be a better option. So this mistake doesn't happen. And also audio, when you share entire screen, I think in the previous videos, the audio was not with the audio. Was not shared with audio.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Gopi Dervaliya. Today I am going to deal with this topic, tradition versus modernity in the home and the world, a famous novel by Rabindranath Tagore. This is my personal information. This is a roadmap of my presentation. First is about the author Rabindranath Tagore, about the novel The Home and the World, tradition versus modernity in the novel, characters in which the key characters of the novel, Nikhil, Sandip, and Bimala, and their perspectives on the modernity and tradition. Conflict and tensions, in which some dialogues of characters and from the novel that exemplify these conflicts. Then Tagore's view on tradition and modernity, and then tradition and modernity in the contemporary time. About the author, Rabindranath Tagore is internationally known as a great poet. He was born in Calcutta, Bengal. From his earliest days, Rabindranath grew up in a house where all the surging tides of the Indian Renaissance were flowing around his daily life. He was primarily an educationist rather than a political thinker. The cultural richness of his extended family permitted young Rabindranath to assimilate and learn subconsciously at his own pace, giving him an open model of education, which he later tried to recreate in his school at Shantiniketan. He believed that education should help an individual to attain complete maturity. He also started an experimental school at Shanti Niketan, where he tried his Upanishadic ideals of education. Though he is mainly celebrated as a poet, his multifaceted talent was shown upon different genres of art. Rabindranath Tagore, a towering personality of the second millennium world literature, remains unsurpassed to this day by his unique contribution to this large and flourishing tradition. His works are classics renowned for their lyrical beauty, and moral thoughts. He showed that reality can be viewed not only from direct prosaic words, but also from images and symbolic languages. These are his famous works, Gitanjali, Gora, The Post Office, and Cloud and Waves. About the novel, here is a brief information of the novel, The Home and the World. Rabindranath Tagore's The Home and the World, first published as a novel in 1916, was a very important publication in its time. To read this novel, one should be in one's mind his vision of modern Indian society.
He is a truly a man of whole earth, a product of the best of both traditional Indian and modern Western cultures. The novel focuses on three characters: Nikhil, Bimla, and Sandip, each of whom speaks in the first person in recounting how they interact with one another. Nikhil is Bimla's husband and Sandip is Bimla's would-be lover. Nikhil epitomizes the unselfish, progressive husband and who wishes to free his wife from the oppressiveness of a traditional Indian marriage. In contrast, Sandip is a man who thinks only of himself and who reduces man-woman relationships to brazen sexuality. He is interested in a blunt thing, bluntly put, without any thinking niceness. Bimla is represented as innocent, who, at least initially, he is completely subservient to her husband. It is the relationship of the home with the outside world. Nikhil is Western oriented, modern, and he wants his wife Bimla to be modified by Western education. Bimla follows Hindu rituals, and so she doesn't go outside her house. Her world is the blend of conflict of Western ideas and traditional Indian life, but she imitates her husband Nikhil, and so she tries to grip modern ideas and things that Nikhil provides her. Tradition versus modernity in the home and the world. There is much talk about the term traditional, modern, and contemporary, which confuses the issue in art and literature. Thus, in talking about traditional, modern, and contemporary literature, one has to ask what is traditional, what is modern, and what is contemporary in literature. Tradition is commonly supposed to be everything ancient, something orthodox and obsolete. Actually, what is today called tradition was once modern and contemporary. Modern and contemporary seem to mean something fashionable. If a man wears a European suit, a necktie, he is considered to be modern, which only implies that he is not wearing the old tunic and dhoti or kurta pajama, but new clothes. This kind of talk is superficial because underneath the clothes, words or apparel remains the human being who is more or less unchanged or changed very slightly in the evolutionary process. Surely every age could have used the word modern in regard to its literature. But it must be admitted that there is always something new in the modern and contemporary, which is not in the ancient modern. Key characters and their perspectives on tradition and modernity. Nikhil, Sandip, and Bimla, these are the main characters of the novel. The story revolves around three sharply contrasting characters: Nikhil, a real patriot; Bimla, his wife, a toddler in a political environment; and Nikhil's friend Sandip, an aggressive yet materialistic charmer. Nikhil, Tagore's vision of new life is voiced forth by Nikhil. He is not a conservative, he is a liberal man with modern bent of mind. He stands for all that is good and vital in the Indian tradition. His approach to patriotism and Swadeshi movement reflect Tagore's nostalgic memory of freedom struggle. The patriotism and traditionalism portrayed in the character of Nikhil reveal the real nature of our nationalism and the expectations of most of the people of our country. Though it is an imaginative character, it paints the true picture of present day Indian society, since the younger generation rocks between Indian traditional values and Western domination. This is the dialogue from The Home and the World. I am willing, he said, to serve my country, but my worship I reserve for right, which is far greater than my country. To worship my country as a god is to bring a curse upon it. Then Sandeep, an energetic, egoistic, wily schemers, aggressive Western type of nationalism, is the one which pasteurizes the emerging trend of present democratic India and also the new track that was shaped during the nationalistic movement. He carefully keeps his followers confused by mixing up westernization, nationalism, and social behavior. Next is Bimla. Bimla's character in The Home and the World by Rabindranath Tagore undergoes a transformation throughout the novel. At the beginning of the story, she portrayed as a traditional character who adhered to societal norms. She embodies the traditional role expected of women in her society. Bimla's character evolves from being more traditional to adopting a more modern outlook as she grapples with her changing beliefs and desires. Conflict and tensions in this novel, the home and the world, there is a conflict and tensions between modernity and traditional values and modern ideals. So here is some dialogues from the novel. Bimla's inner conflict. I am torn between duty and desire. My heart craves the excitement of the modern world, but my traditional role as a wife binds me to Nikhil. Nikhil's modern perspective that we must strive for progress, but it should be gradual, not destructive. Our goal in independence, but we cannot achieve it by restoring to violence. Traditional values versus Swadeshi movement. And Sandip said that the time of modernism is over. We must tear down the symbols of oppression and fight for our rights. Swadeshi is the way to freedom, my friends. Tagore's view on tradition and modernity. Tagore criticizes the Indian tendency for imitation of the West, known as the large westernization of India, as a simple copy that denatured both the model via the simplification in the process and the copy itself. Modernity must point to the renewal of Indian categories on the side of innovation and creativity, selecting in this process with a critical mind the positive contribution of the Western civilization. Thus, Tagore finds in modernism a tool for an aesthetic and a moral anti-colonialist struggle towards independence, finding a harmonious relation to the West, one that would neither be complete rejection nor alienation, constitutes an objective to a large part of Tagore's literature, which guarantees him originally in his oppositions to most of his contemporary follows and a singularity in the understanding of modernism. Tradition versus modernity in contemporary time. Tradition refers to the customs, beliefs, and cultural practices that are passed down from one generation to the next generation. It has its origin in the past. Modernity refers to the contemporary behavior or way of doing things. It is fresh, new, and modern. Tradition and modernity both prevail side by side in India. Indian culture is a blend of traditional values and the modern spirit. Modernity is not altogether new in India. It is more than 100 years old and has during this period been making steady headway. The Hindu tradition itself is not homogeneous, as many of its spokesmen and critics often seem to assume. It is true that some of the Hindu traditions are inherently incompatible with the modern spirit. In ancient India, particularly during the period of Rigvedic society, the Indian society was free from most of the inhibitions of later Hinduism. In elaborating the distinctions and interaction between the great tradition of urban centers and the little tradition of village communities. Anthropologists have called our attention to the diversity and the existence of alternative in what has been supposed to be a uniform body of rules and values. We must avoid accepting the written and intellectualized versions of a culture as only the literate from of a common set of beliefs and behavior patterns. The distinctions between popular religion and the religion of the literate elite has long been a recognition of this difficulty in characterizing the religion of a society. M.N. Srinivas has shown that while higher social lives appear to be westernizing their lifestyles, when lower and middle levels seek mobility, they do so by becoming more devotedly Hinduistic, following more Brahminical styles, and otherwise Sanskritilizing their behavior. Tradition and modernity are not contradictory or competing concepts. Rather, they represent different phases of meaning and are, in fact, symbolically related to each other. As such, traditions is the ground from which all manner of modernity arises. To conclude, The Home and the World by Rabindranath Tagore masterfully explores the timeless conflict between traditional values and modern ideals. Through the characters of Bimla, Nikhil, and Sandip, Tagore vividly portrayed the inner turmoil and external clashes that arise when individuals and societies grapple with the transition from tradition to modernity. The dialogue, scenes, and character interactions in the novel provide a rich tapestry of the complex, multifaceted nature of this conflict. These are my references, and thank you. If you have any question, you can ask me.
Gopi, my question is how do Bimla's inner conflicts and dilemmas resonates with the struggles individuals face when navigating between traditionality and modernity?
Okay, we can see in the novel Bimla's inner conflicts and dilemmas resonate with the struggle of her life. As we can see that Bimla's character is very important in the novel, and Bimla's inner conflicts and dilemmas uh, serve that Bimla's character provides a poignant and very dynamic, poignant and relatable character, and through through that readers can be understand and empathizes the reader can be empathizes the with the challenging such the transitions.
Gopi, in the contemporary context, what relevance do you see in the conflict and tensions between traditional values and modern ideas depicted in the movement?
Yes, as I mentioned in my presentation that in the contemporary context, the tradition and the tensions and conflicts between traditional values and modern ideals depicted in this novel remain highly relevant, and this novel serve as a timeless exploration of the human experiences. The conflict and tensions within the novel are the conflict and tensions within the novel are one's place in a one's place in a dynamic and contemporary context.
Am I visible and audible? Okay. Hello everyone, myself Hetal Pathak on the very first day of presentation season semester 3 in paper number 201 Indian English Literature Pre-Independence, and my topic is Bimla's journey of self-discovery in Rabindranath Tagore's novel The Home and the World. These are my personal details. These are some of the points which I am going to discuss in my presentation. Beginning with the introduction of Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was an Indian poet, writer, playwright, composer, philosopher, social reformer, and painter. In Krishna Kriplani's work, Rabindranath Tagore, a biography, he has written that if Tagore had been nothing more than a poet and writer, the quality and output of his contributions to his people's language and literature would still entitle him to be remembered as one of the truly great immortals. He was an artist in life. His personal life was as harmonious and noble as his works is simple and beautiful. He lived as he wrote, not for pleasure or profit, but out of joy. Not as a brilliant egoist, but as a dedicated spirit, conscious that his genius was a gift from the divine to be used in the service of man. The Nobel Prize in Literature 1930 was awarded to Rabindranath Tagore because of his profoundly sensitive, fresh, and beautiful works by which, with consummate skill, he has made his poetic thought expressed in his own English words, a part of the literature of the West. Rabindranath Tagore was largely self taught and also known as the Bard of Bengal. About the home and the world. The home and the world was originally published in Bengali language with the title Ghare Bahire in the year 1960, and later it was translated and published in English language by the author's nephew Surendranath Tagore in the year 1990. Talking about the political background of the novel, The Home and the World, it's set against the backdrop of the Swadeshi movement in Bengal, following its sudden and arbitrary partition by the British Viceroy Lord Curzon in 1905. The novel illustrates the battle that Tagore had with himself between the two different ideas and ideologies of Western culture and the revolution against Western culture. And these two different ideas are portrayed in the novel with the characters of Nikhilesh and Sandip. Though the novel is the entire novel is told with the perspective of three main characters, which are Nikhilesh, Bimla, and Sandip. Nikhilesh or Nikhil, husband of Bimla, and he described as an educated and gentle man, rational and who opposes violence. Bimla, a traditional female and wife of Nikhilesh, and Sandip, third major character who is having revolutionary ideas about nationalism and Swadeshi movement. Talking about Bimla's journey of self-discovery, dilemma, and transformation. First, let's begin with her early life and her marriage to Nikhil. The story starts when she marries to Nikhilesh, a noble and progressive man from a bourgeois Bengali household. Bimla submits herself completely to the home and her husband, yielding to her conditioning, because this is the only way she believes in which a woman can love her husband, while Nikhil reserves her a seat beside him. Bimla suggests in the story that she would be happier with a place at his feet. It means her husband Nikhilesh feet. It was my woman's heart which must worship in order to love. Bimla, the main protagonist of the novel, is presented as a native Indian woman who gets Western and modern education and lives modern lifestyle due to her marriage. Bimla stands at the center of the tale. From the very beginning of the novel, Nikhil tries to shape Bimla as his new woman. He wants her to arrive in the outside world to know more herself. His earnest desire to see Bimla as a free woman who will choose to love him, not because custom dictates it, but of her own record.
speaks of his denial to the acceptance of the traditional male orthodoxy reigning in the society. The title of the novel reveals a major theme. It is the relationship of the home with the outside world. Nikhil is Western, oriented, modern, and he wants his wife Bimla to be modified by Western education. Bimla follows Hindu rituals and so she does not go outside her house. Her world is the blend of conflict of Western ideas and education as well as traditional Indian life. But she imitates her husband Nikhil and so she tries to grip and grapple between the ideas and things that Nikhilesh provides her after their marriage. Bimla is caught between the two men. Initially, she is seduced by Sandip's cause, although in her mind the exact nature of the cause is never clear. It remains an ambiguous fanaticism for truth. Bimla does not fully understand the consequences of her actions, however, until they bear that destructive fruit. Nikhil and Sandip have opposing views on foreign influence, and Bimla finds herself in a struggle between the influences of the two men. So the novel opens when Bimla marries Nikhilesh, and Nikhilesh is a man, aristocrat. He belongs to the aristocratic Bengali household, and his viewpoints and his thinking is very rational, and he also opposes violence, and he thinks that everyone have their own choices and freedoms, and that is why he wants Bimla to love her, but not because of the custom dictates it, but because of her own record. So that is why Nikhilesh wants to give freedom to Bimla, and he wants to know that Bimla should go outside the home and wants to know more about herself. Her role as a wife. Bimla continues to have a strong sense of wifehood and unrelenting devotion to her husband. She internalizes the duties of an ideal wife, and it her conditioning that has led to her to think so. She thinks that it is through touching her husband's feet and taking the dust from it would make her love her husband. Her real joy was that at her husband's feet, she feels a sense of inferiority because of her poorer background and her darker complexion. The role of wife is particularly a constructing one. Satyajit Ray's film Ghare Bahire, to a large extent, is a faithful adaptation of Rabindranath Tagore's novel uh, to the same name. Ray, in his film, explores that how Bimla, his heroine, struggles to redefine herself as wife and mistress in a determined effort to free herself from the traditional definitions of these two roles as imposed and insisted upon by her husband Nikhil and lover Sandip. So Nikhil wants Bimla to give freedom, and he wants that Bimla should also have their own freedom and her own choices. On the other hand, Sandip's view is completely different, and Sandip makes Bimla believe that the entire nation is in the need of Bimla, and that is why Bimla does not know that what she have to do, whether she wants to follow the traditional rules or traditional wife duties, or whether she wants to involve herself in a Swadeshi movement. The film very sensitively portrays a wife's confused passion, a husband's misguided nobility, and a lover's shrewd exploitation to achieve his selfish ends. Both husband and wife suffer, as we know that till in the last end of the novel, Nikhilesh and Sandeep both suffers, and the lover conveniently exists. It is the wife who ultimately gets victimized by the powerful Hindu forces of the period's male hegemony. Satyajit Ray makes Bimla the inevitable victim of her period's history, which finally forces her to occupy a position which is neither at home nor in the world of her time. Influence of Swadeshi movement. So, how the influence of Swadeshi movement impacts upon the character of Bimla. Swadeshi movement disseminated in Bengal between 905 and 908. The immediate cause for Swadeshi in Bengal was the partition of Bengal in 904. The novel is also set in the time when Swadeshi movement encompassed Bengal. As we know the political background of the novel, Nikhil's friend Sandip is a handsome revolutionary Swadeshi enthusiast who is devoted to the cause of country. Bimala stands for the new concept of nation and women because Swadeshi also involved the woman question in its fight. Bimla, while first listening to the speech of Sandip, is totally bewitched and identifies herself as the woman of Bengal who must fight for the country. So when Sandip makes entry in the novel, his ideas and his views about nationalism completely differs from the ideas of Nikhilesh, and in one way or the other, he makes Bimla convinced that the entire nation is in the need of her, and that is why she have to involve herself in the nationalist movement with him. I was utterly unconscious of myself. I was no longer the lady of Raja's house, but the sole representative of Bengal's womanhood, and he was the champion of Bengal. So, this is the quote, this is the dialogue in the novel by Bimla. When the influence of Swadeshi movement impacts upon her character, she was utterly unconscious of herself, and she doesn't know that what was she doing, and what will be the consequences of that. Bimla's fascination with Sandip disturbs her equation with Nikhil. She mistakes the ideals of Nikhil as his weakness for not supporting Swadeshi movement. So, when Sandip makes an entry, and when the two characters, Sandip and Bimla, are interrogating with each other about the Swadeshi movement, it obviously disturbs the equation of Bimla with her husband Nikhil, and that is why even Bimla mistakes the ideals of Nikhil as his weakness for not supporting Swadeshi movement. So Bimla somewhere thinks that even Nikhilesh don't want to support her in the Swadeshi movement, but somewhere we know that Nikhilesh doesn't want to stop Bimla because he thinks that he wants to give freedom to her. As Bimla becomes an active participant of Swadeshi, she becomes estranged to Nikhil. Sandeep makes Bimla believe that the whole country is in need of her, and that is how Bimla begins to be involved with Sandeep in saving the country. Bimla's infatuation with Sandip stands in the novel for Bengal's infatuation with Swadeshi. So the way that Bengali citizens they are infatuated with Swadeshi, in the same way Bimla's infatuation we can see with Sandip in the context of Swadeshi movement. Bimla is confused about her love for Swadeshi and also for her love for Sandip. Swayed by Sandip, she feels, I was Shakti, also an embodiment of universal joy. And this hero, this true servant of the country, this devotee of mine, this flaming intelligence, this burning energy, the shining genius, him also was I creating from moment to moment. Have I not seen how my presence pours fresh life into him time after time? Bimla's journey from home to the world and back to home is a cautionary tale against the dangers of Swadeshi movement, which was degenerating into a violent movement. So that is how throughout the novel we can find that first we can see Bimla as a traditional wife, and she completes her traditional duties, and her primary responsibility revolves around the comfort of her husband Nikhilesh. But as the novel progresses, and so when Sandeep makes an entry, we can find that her even Sandeep tries to uh,
tries to impact on her inner turmoil. And that is how we can find that first Bimla we can see as a traditional wife, and slowly about her self discovery and her transformation, she completely changed. Analysis of her character development, Bimla struggles for identity. The identity of the overcoming of the conflict of old ideas makes her think that the modern ideas can bring true freedom of mind. She is a part of the country, but she comes across her home, which is the blend of culture. She is torn between two ideas. She cannot decide whether she should support her country or support her husband like a traditional Indian woman. She is forced to understand how her traditional Indian life can associate with a modern world. Throughout the novel, she continued to struggle between tradition and modernity. Bimla's character development in the home and the world is a complex journey of self discovery, transformation, and ultimately a realization in the end of the novel. So, the character of Bimla becomes a mixture and a blend of Western ideas, as well as her role as a traditional Indian woman. And first we see her character as a traditional Indian woman, then her desire for involvement in Swadeshi movement, and at the end, when she came to know that Sandip is doing all these things of nationalism for his own motive and own selfish person. So in the end, ultimately, he realized that her true home is in her true world is in her home. So that is how we can compare her journey of self discovery and transformation. Conclusion. There are three distinctive views on nationalism presented in this novel through the key characters Nikhil, Bimla, and Sandip. Nikhil represents the ideology of Rabindranath Tagore, as we have seen that Nikhil opposes violence. So, Nikhil can be seen as the spokesperson of Rabindranath Tagore about Swadeshi movement. On the other hand, Sandip represents extreme nationalistic view, and he can do anything for reaching his goals. Between these two distinctive views, Bimla represents the dilemmatic view on nationalism. Tagore also depicts India in the form of a woman, Bimla. Bimla is portrayed as the physiological and psychological resemblance of the nation. Thus, to conclude, Tagore's The Home and the World, retiring the old process of assimilation and homogenization, resolved Bimla's estrangement by relocating her world in her home. These are my references that I have taken for the presentations, and now I am open for questions.
Hetal, my question is that what impact do the interactions and relationships with other characters, such as Nikhil and Sandip, have on Bimla's journey of self-discovery?
Okay. So the interactions between the two characters Nikhil and Sandeep, as we know that the Sandeep and Nikhil both are the friends of each other, but they both are having completely different views upon nationalism, and they both interact with each other. But in a way, when Sandeep makes an entry in the novel, everything becomes a change. He Sandeep tries to interact more and more with Bimla, and that is how he wants to involve her in involve. He wants involvement of Bimla in Swadeshi movement, and as a husband, Nikhil can stop Bimla for doing all these things. But as we know, the characteristics of Nikhilesh in the very initial part of the novel, that he don't want to stop Bimla for whatever she is doing. But when Bimla came to know about Sandeep's tricks and his selfish motive, she ultimately realized that what was she was doing, that the nationalism that was wrong. So that is how the interactions and relationships of the characters Nikhil and Sandeep, it have a large impact on Bimla's journey of self discovery and transformation.
Hetal, my question is how does Bimla, nurtured by tradition and introduced to modernity by Nikhil, find herself in the midst of the nationalist movement?
Okay, so when the novel opens, we can see that first Bimla wants to be like her mother. That she when the marriage proposal of her came, the one astrologer says that she would become an ideal wife, and that is how at the time of marriage she was seen as a very traditional Indian wife, and her only primary responsibility revolves around Nikhilesh, and she don't want to step outside of the world. But as when after their marriage, and when Nikhilesh wants to Bimla to go outside the world and wants to know more about herself, and he also uh, wants that Bimla educate herself with the modern ideas and Western education. So that is how Bimla, nurtured by tradition and modernity by Nikhil, and that played a vital role in the nationalist movement also. Okay, so that is from my side. Thank you.
Is it okay, sir?
Hello everyone, my name is Hina Parmar, and today I am going to deal with the topic Swadeshi movement in Tagore's The Home and the World. This is my personal information, some points which I am going through in my presentation. So first, let's start with Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was a poet, philosopher, playwright, song composer, essayist, novelist, and painter. In the 90s, he wrote many patriotic songs and protest against the partition of Bengal. In 1913, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, the first Asian to receive this honor. In 1950, he was awarded a knighthood which he returned in 1990 as a protest against the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. In 1921, he established Vishwa Bharati University as Shanti Niketan, a center for arts and ideas. Tagore's notable works include poetry collection The Golden Boat, Chitrangada, Post Office Gora, and The Home and the World. In the 1920s, Tagore produced paintings which won him appreciation as one of the leading contemporary artists of the country. Tagore is the person who is traveled throughout the world and he delivered most important lectures. And he also wrote upon nationalism, civilization, and on religion. Most of his works are centered around caste and widow remarriages and politics issues. Home and the World. The Home and the World is a novel that reads like an allegory on the failure of the Indian nationalist projects circling around the issue of home versus world, tradition versus modernity, create, create by the active involvement of the colonizers in the cultural, economic, and administrative life of the colonizers. The novel is set at the time of the Swadeshi movement, which emerged as the radical nationalist response to the act of partition engineered by the British colonial administration. The Home and the World was published 10 years after the vexing partition of Bengal and the beginning of the magic uh, incantation of Vande Mataram, first in Bengali and then in English. In this novel, there were the three characters, and the character of Nikhil is the true follower of Swadeshi movement because he is the person who thinking of his nation's poor people. Because in Swadeshi movement, they were avoiding Western goods, and they were forced to buy Indian goods, which is Indian goods were much of the Indian goods were have high rupees than the Western goods. And in opposite, the Sandip's character is he was the radical nationalist leader, and he believed in blunt things, bluntly put, without any finicking niceness. And Sandip believes his belief is that let us dedicate our lives to removing the root of this sorrow in the country. Swadeshi movement in Tagore's Home and the World. Swadeshi movement is the center theme in the Tagore's Home and the World. Swadeshi movement is one of the important movement which is the leads people to think for their nation and hold their culture and hold their identity. And this is the one of the way that they can united and they can fight for their nation. And the Swadeshi movement Tagore suggested that the Swadeshi movement is much more complex than that we think, and as the same as the Home and the World, the novel is also have much more complexity. The movement emerged as a response to Lord Curzon's policy of divide the rule. Divide and rule. The partition of Bengal was planned by the Governor General and Viceroy of India, Lord Curzon. The government called the partition an administrative move. Swadeshi was a part of nationalist movement which focused on promoting the Indian handmade goods and boycotting Western goods. Thus, it aims to strengthen the local industries. It was a non-violent movement. The Swadeshi movement is all of Swadeshi movement is for them, for nations poor people, but it not benefit them. This movement is non-violent movement, but later on it converted into violent movement. The concept of Swadeshi was sufficiency, a method which could improve the economic conditions in the country through indigenous technique and products. Gandhi believed that there was a significant connection between Swadeshi and Swaraj. Swadeshi movement disseminated in Bengal between 95 and 19 8. The immediate cause for Swadeshi in Bengal was the partition of Bengal in 95. Nikhil was the opponent that boycotting foreign goods from the Indian market would be a huge loss of the poor traders for whom earning small amount of money is an everyday struggle. An example of this was Panchu, a poor man who sold foreign clothes. Nikhil believed that Nikhil have different idea for Swadeshi movement. He thinks for their nation's people. On opposite, Sandip and his Swadeshi supporters burnt the whole bale of cloth and cried, "This is the first funeral ray lighted by your village in the celebration of the last rites of foreign commerce. commerce. There are sacred ashes. Smear yourself with them in token of your Swadeshi vow." Nikhil has his own version of Swadeshi. He uses Indian made pencils, knives, and old fashioned castor oil lamps. His version of Swadeshi is marked with peaceful methods and self control. Sandeep's show of nationalism is actually a form of self love. Uh, and Bimla's fascination with Sandip disturbed her equation with Nikhil. She mistakes the ideals of Nikhil's and his weakness for not supporting Swadeshi. On the other hand, Nikhil, who has immense trust and love for Bimla, continue to watch how she crosses the threshold of the house to enter a new world. Nikhil gave freedom to Bimla, that whatever she want to do, she can do, and she can follow their ideas and whatever she believes. And Bimla is confused about her love for Swadeshi and her love for Sandeep. Um, um, Swayed by Sandip, she feels that I was Shakti, also an embodiment of universal joy. And this hero, this true servant of the country, this devotee of mine, this flaming intelligence, this burning energy, this shining genius, he also was I, creating from moment to moment. Have I not seen how my presence pours fresh life into him time after time? Bimla believes that nation need her help, but this is not the true. And Sandeep forced Bimla that she have to participate in Swadeshi movement, and she contributes some work for Swadeshi movement, but Bimala did not do anything. Ekla Chalo Re by Rabindranath Tagore. Ekla Chalo Re is the song which is written by Rabindranath Tagore, and this is the one of the rhyme song which is this song in Swadeshi movement. And this is the one of the song that give strength and power and courage to Indian people, that they can fight for their nation, and they can fight all alone. If there were no one, they can also fight for all alone. And this is the song that give freedom the Indian people, that they can unite and they can fight, and they can also put their ideas and put their whatever they believe, and they can follow they can follow their thoughts. The song was composed by Rabindranath Tagore in 1905. It was one of the several protest songs which was composed in the background of a tense political situation following the Swadeshi movement, and was originally entitled Eka. Eka was first published in the September 1955 issue of the Bandar magazine, and was included in Tagore's song anthology in the section of Gita Bitan, which was Tagore's lyrical anthology. The musical rendition of the song was prepared by his nice Indian Indira Devi, and was recorded by him between 95 and 98. Unfortunately, the original record, which was labeled as Swadeshi record, was lost. Ekla Chalore has been adapted in popular culture in several ways, and have been recorded by various singers eventually. The song epitomizes the spirit of continuing one's journey despite abandonment and no support, and continues to inspire people. Records are lost, however, two other records made by Harendranath Dutt and Hindu till the date. Conclusion. Thus, through the novel, Tagore continues us about the dangers of such nationalist movements which were running across the country. Tagore bringing in to review the true meaning of the term Swadeshi. People like Sandip were only influencing people in the name of Swadeshi with no real spirit of the term. The motive was to only make money. In her motive to serve the country, Bimla is attracted to this outside world and leave behind her husband Nikhil, her home. Nikhil, who represent Tagore's ideology, never gives in the into the tactics of Swadeshi movement. Bimla's journey from home to the world and back to home is a cautionary tale against the dangers of Swadeshi movement, which was degenerating into a violating movement. This is some references. Thank you. Now I'm. Do you have any question?
Hina, my question is, how does the Swadeshi movement impact the lives and decisions of the central characters such as Bimla, Nikhil, and Sandip?
Swadeshi movement impact their lives and decisions of the central characters. Um, we know that the true follower of the Swadeshi movement is Nikhilesh, and he think differently from Sandip and Bimla. He think for their nation's people, and he think that he know that Swadeshi goods have high values than Western goods, and some of the poor sellers were selling their selling Western goods, and if the nation's people were avoid to buying Western goods, then unfortunately the poor people suffer for that. And Bimla thinks that nation need her, and she can do for Swadeshi movement, but she doesn't do anything, and she at the end at the end of the novel, Bimla opened her mind, and she know that Sandip is not the right person, and he is not the true follower of Swadeshi movement. He only needs money, and he is selfish people.
Hina, my question is that how does the Swadeshi movement in the novel affects the relationship of three main characters and also the love triangle between Bimla and Sandip?
The Swadeshi movement in this novel affect the Swadeshi movement in this novel mainly affect my perspective is that the Swadeshi movement is only affected two characters, Bimla and Nikhilesh, because the Sandeep is the character who is only for money, and he is selfish one, and he just need power of politics, and Nikhilesh is the true follower of Swadeshi movement, and on other side, Bimla wants to follow Swadeshi movement, and she have her own thoughts, but Nikhilesh Nicholas allow her to do whatever she want to do, but at the end, at the end, Nikhilesh was died, and Bimla get to know the idea that. Idea that Nikhilesh is the right person, and his thought of Swadeshi movement is reliable. Thank you.
Okay, so giving a quick feedback on what work is done. So by and large, everybody presented quite well. So far as the content is concerned, it was good. Your slides were also good presentations, and most of you read also quite well. We want you to present rather than read the things, but still many of you are reading line by line or word by word. So the slides are not for you, that is for the audience. You have to orally look in the camera or to the audience and try to talk with the people that what you are trying to do in that particular slide, so that you try to practice. Otherwise, everybody has done quite well in that content. A few comments which you can work on to improve slightly. Let me show you, share the slide to see this. Some major problems in citations were found in Avani's presentation and few others also. For example, Yes, let me also tell this, that when you share a screen, if you are sharing a Chrome tab or entire screen, and if you want to share video, then you have to tick mark there, that also share system audio when you share entire screen. If it is on, then only the audio will go through this. You can listen here, but it will not go through StreamYard over YouTube. So that you don't forget when you do that. Okay, so for example, one was this concern about how to cite internet archive, which I have shared in WhatsApp group also. When we ask internet itself that how to share internet archive, so they also have given the answer, which I have shared in WhatsApp. So it is like a normal book. So who is the original writer is Harihar Das, is the original writer of this Life and Letters of Torudat. And because letters are written by Torudat, Torudat also becomes the writer. But original editor or compiler is Harihar Das. And when you give the link, then you have to give the link of archive.org. This link you have to give, that you got this book from this source. So that you have to see. Then this citation also you have done, but you have not put the name of the writer. Our main concern is to see who is the writer. That is our main quest. And once we know who is the writer, we try to see whether the writer has any academic worth or not, worth citing, whether he is academician, is he worth citing or not, or that person is like anybody who is blogging or normal influencers. So if I get a chance to get a source from academician or expert, then I don't go to social media influencer. I'm doing something about popular culture and where extensive work is not done, and then social media influencer is fine. So that way we have to balance the things. Because when we'll come to popular culture in cultural studies, you will find social media influencer talking about something. So then you say that you are told not to do that, but you remember properly where it is allowed, where it is not allowed, in what context. In traditional literature, you obviously find better person whose works are available on internet also. So then you have to rely on those resources. So the person's name is also given there, Aliki Bohemer at the bottom, who is the writer. So it was not difficult to find this source, that who is the writer, and even if you learn more, then you get lots of resource about the contributor. So Aliki Bohemer is a critic and writer. She is professor of world literature in English at University of Oxford. So you get an authenticity that yes, there is no problem in citing this. You can. That way we ascertain that which source we are taking also. So that you need to check. Then few like this was in Bhavyata, and anybody who talked about astrology. The first concern may be that why do people believe in astrology? And it is about mind. So we have to go to psychology, and you have to see that are there research papers written by psychologists or psychiatrists on because it is their domain, and we are doing interdisciplinary thing in literature. So we see that what the psychologists believe. So we have very interesting works being done, and all this also rely on psychological study also, like how that these things are significant. This one also has psychology behind why we believe in horoscopes, has very interesting citation sources also. Then this Burnham effect is referred by many of this. So what is this Burnham effect? And that can also be seen. This also why people believe in horoscopes. So this becomes very important, that how we get a chance to go into other discipline and then see that what those people have thought about this. That's why we time and again remember that literature is highly interdisciplinary subject. This citation was in whose work? Anybody can?
I said this because in first citation.
Yes, South Asian.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So name.
We took reference from this book, but I can't open this.
No, but names were visible, no? There. Fakhrul Alam.
Yeah.
The name. So name is what I'm asking, that it should go with the name in citation. The name of the person who is the writer, authors are very significant. So that was missing in the citation.
First citation was that, and the Fakral was the પેલું જે સાઇટેશન છે ને એમાં એને આ બુકમાંથી રેફરન્સ લીધેલો છે. મેં આખું જનરલ વાંચ્યું છે અને એમાં નીચે લખેલું હતું, એટલે આ બુક મેં સર્ચ કરી અને પછી આ માર્કથી ઓપન હતું એટલે મેં આ પણ સાઇટ કરી.
So there you have to write then. As a reader, when I read, I think that you are referring to this book, but this is not cited. Then how can I know what is in your mind? Why all these things are there? To be clear to the reader. You have to be reader friendly. All this process is that when a person is evaluating your work and wants to see whether you have cited properly or not, or I want to verify what you say, this quote, but is it the same way that the person is telling or not? So the other person who is verifying your claims, these are the use. This is still you are not doing here, which I will suggest you that you have to make arguments based on all these things. So when you are making an argument or some conclusion, it is not only bringing them there, but making some argument or claims. So when you make those claims, then somebody wants to know whether you have read it properly or not. Then otherwise it is problematic thing. That's why it is used. So if you do what we call it as cross citation, not directly from the book, then you have to write that as cited by so and so in this work. As cited by so and so in so and so work, and you cite that person only from where you have seen the things. This also was the work, but the name was missing. This was in whose work? Anybody? Rupkatha was also cited. But the name was missing, but and it is clearly given. Ayalita Banerjee, the name is very clearly given. So sometimes it is difficult. So I think that it might be difficult, so you're not able to do that. So I do cross verification and see. But I find it is very easily available on the very first page. So why there is a problem in not getting this simple fact? So these are few things which you can correct and see that. And otherwise everything was good. Let me just overview. Some good questions are also asked, and I'm seeing that the language is and the grammar is good in the question also. So it seems you might be using some AI tool to get the question also. So, but that way you can learn also that what is the right way. Like you can compare that what way you ask and what is the right way. So that way it can become a tool to see that a correct English is done. So many of you did good work in doing in-text citation and at the end of the work citation also. So I was able to see in the in-text brackets were given, and then it was also mentioned in the later part also. So if you want to move from a level up from this, those who were able to do successfully all the citations at the end and in the text, then you have to make arguments. For example, when Drashti had cited Atkinson, David Atkinson, so you have to say that David Atkinson argues so and so kind of a thing, or he has observed so and so thing, or if you agree, you can add a word, he rightly observed, or the observation of so and so is slightly problematic. It means you are not agreeing with that observation. So you say it seems to be problematic, and you want to deviate from that observation, or you want to agree with that observation. So not necessarily every time you agree only with the citation that you are taking. Sometimes you are making your own argument, and so you say that, well, it is not agreeable with so and so person. So and so says so and so thing, but I can't agree because my logic is this. And then you give your logic or your argument in that way. So that way you have to see. Many of you cited Nobel Prize website also. As mentioned on Nobel Prize website, that way, that is how you not only copying a paragraph, pasting it, and putting the bracket, novel website. That is also good that you are doing that, but you have to make a sentence formation that has cited in so-and-so website or this, and we can do that. Gayatri also, the same thing you have to see. You have taken lot many things from this Raha's article. So sometimes you find a good article and then most of the things you do picking up from those things and that only. So you can read, but you should have your own, first slide can be what is your question, what you are trying to explore. And the last slide, what is your conclusion. In between, you bring other people's sources to prove the point, but at least your question and your final interpretation. That is very important. So what you are concluding, not what others have concluded, but anything else that you want to say, then that becomes very important point. I think Hetal is cited from Rupkatha or Gopi. Yeah, you cited. In Gopi citation, many of those things were missing from in-text citation. Some of you have that problem still. It should match. That is the main idea, that in-text citation and at the end of the text citation should match with each other. In Hina, this Ekla Chalore, you have started with E. Obviously, writer's name is what is the simple thing. It should start with T alphabetically. It should go with T only. So that is very simple. So no confusion at all should be there in seeing that. Like in psychology, we have said that you should cite when you talk about horoscope or astrologer's date, something from psychology. The same way in Swadeshi movement, a book by this book. One is the book on nationalism by Tagore himself shall be cited, and another one this Hind Swaraj or Indian Home Rule by M.K. Gandhi also should be referred. So some seminal works so far as that. So Tagore's nationalism also I think was missing from your sources. So somehow you are not able to reach through the search engines to that particular work, and this also you can refer to. Okay, so otherwise it was good. The things were presented quite well. Just you need to take care of time. Don't go beyond 10 minutes. Be between 5 and 10 minutes. Between 5 and 10 minutes you have to be. So and give some more time in answering the questions or asking in a better way the questions. So there a few of you were not able to, Aarti, Anjali, you were not able to give a proper answer. So it means that the concept was not very clear on what you have made. Otherwise, there won't be any confusion in giving the answers here. Okay, so don't forget to do two things. Peer review quickly right now, only complete it, so I don't have to put any reminder in WhatsApp. And second, timestamp by evening. By evening, you can put the timestamp also.